In this episode, we're back in the German cookbook from the 18th century, and we're going to be doing this really interesting soup. Thanks for joining us today. So this soup recipe is a real interesting one from a German cookbook from the late 18th century. Instructions of all kinds of cookery and pastry, something like that, from 1795. It sounds like a really interesting recipe. This is work this translation work is being done down at Old Salem in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, by Kayla and Karen. This is real interesting work, and I'm so glad that they've let us borrow their work so that we can do some of these recipes out of these cookbooks. So this is a German soup recipe. This one's actually a farina soup with eggs. This one sounds like it might be really interesting for maybe breakfast, but possibly other times. This one's going to be really simple. So we're gonna start out this recipe with broth. I've got 4 cups of a really nice broth. Hopefully you've cooked the chicken recently. You've cooked down the broth and you've got a rich, strong chicken broth. We've got 4 cups of broth here. I've already preheated it on the fire. It's not boiling, but it's nice and warm. We might as well start with a warm broth. The main thing here is farina, and we're using right here cream of wheat because it is almost all just plain farina. And farina is the endosperm and the germ of wheat milled up in a particularly kind of, in a granular kind of way. And this is going to make something really nice here. We've got about a heaping half a cup here. So 4 cups of broth and a little bit more than a half a cup of our farina. And we're gonna sprinkle that in. And while we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and whisk that. We don't want it to lump up. Now, obviously, this is gonna be a soup. We don't want it to be as thick as a regular cream of wheat that we would make up. Now that's nice and mixed up, it's not too lumpy. For spices, the recipe mentions mace. So we've got about maybe a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of mace here that's all ground up nicely, and we'll just sprinkle that in. We could use nutmeg if we really wanted to, right? And the last thing going in here is butter, maybe a tablespoon or so of butter. Now that these are mixed up, we can take this over to the fire. We're just gonna bring it over to the fire, put it on a low heat, and keep simmering it until it starts to thicken up a little bit. Okay, now our soup has definitely thickened up here, but hopefully it's not too thick. And now we're going to bring 1 egg. And now we're slowly going to add this egg in and stir it in. There is no more cooking that needs to be done. This is ready to go to the table with just a little bit of garnish. Let's dish some of this up. And there we go. The recipe book actually specifically mentions that this is good with chives, and so we've got some chives here. Already I can smell the mace or the nutmeg that's in here, and that makes me immediately think 18th century. You know, it's like who's gonna put nutmeg in their, in their breakfast thing? Well, I'm gonna do that. Let's try this soup out. Wow, hey, this is really, really interesting. I wasn't expecting this at all, really. This chicken broth really brings something completely different to this dish. If you're thinking, oh, this is just gonna be, regular old malto meal or whatever, or cream of wheat, totally different. It's got a nice, really thick texture for a soup, but it's got that wonderful broth flavor, that chicken broth that comes in here. It's got a nice quantity of saltiness that already comes in because of that broth. You've got the aromatics of the mace and the chives on top. It looks wonderful and it tastes wonderful. And this isn't just a breakfast thing. This is definitely any time, really. It's you could use this for an evening meal. You could use it for part of the meal. And a tremendous recipe right here from the late 18th century, a German recipe. This is really good. Well, again, I really want to thank the folks that are working on these cookbooks down at Old Salem. Karen and Kayla, they're doing a tremendous job, and I'm really so thankful that they're doing this and are willing to share it with us. This is going to be great. This cookbook that they're working on, it's not available yet for sale. But keep watching their site, and undoubtedly when it gets time that cookbook is available, we'll bring a couple more recipes out to you and bring that to your attention. I'm so excited about the project that they're working on. I really want to thank you for coming along as we experiment with these things, as we experience things. Again, this is one that you could do at home. You can experience this, you can do this. Bring one of these recipes right out of the 18th century and into your kitchen today. And if you're a reenactor or somebody who works at a historic site, this is one of these dishes that if it fits your persona, you should be trying this out. You should be eating these things. It is wonderful. I really want to thank you for coming along with us today as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century.